Andrew from Florida. And oh man, okay, this I may regret taking this, but you're already on the line here, Andrew. This is coming from the call screen. Do you think that Jesus was the Martin Luther King Jr. of his time? Please elaborate on that, Andrew.
Yeah, according to historical Jesus scholarship, like from Yale and Harvard and these Ivy League institutions, Jesus, the historical Jesus, was a progressive, nonviolent, resistant revolutionary. He wanted to liberate his people from an oppressive regime called Rome. And he did show a lot of grace and mercy to the marginalized of his society, like the prostitutes, you know. Prostitution back then wasn't willful. It was out of desperation. And Jesus showed them a lot of grace and humility. And Jesus was an extreme humanist when it came to his own interpretation of the Jewish law. So Jesus's flaws, like he didn't denounce slavery. I think his flaws were because Jesus was a product of his time. But if you compare him to the product of his time, he was pretty progressive.
I'm willing to grant some things here. I think, well, first of all, so the story with Jesus and the prostitute, it's Jesus and the adulteress, I think is the proper term there. That's actually not, that's a later addition to the Gospels, just FYI for people's understanding.
I was talking about that. Sorry.
Okay. Oh no, that's fine. If you're talking about like Mary Magdalene or whatever, I mean, like, look. So was Jesus a non-violent sort of revolutionary? I actually, for the most part, agree with that. Besides, like the weird verse, I think was it John? That's like, "I come not to bring peace, but the sword," which is like really weird. Or maybe that's in Mark. I need to update myself on that. But yeah, I think if you take the body of work that has come out of that, and you're trying to describe a historical Jesus, I think that's fair. I don't think you have to go so far to say that he's MLK, because there's a lot of like non-violent revolutionaries that were definitely fighting for like different things than what Jesus was, particularly Martin Luther King Jr. But yeah, if we want to just say, like, if we're trying to describe a historical Jesus and say that he was, if to use a modern label, progressive for his time, in a non-violent sense, I mean, I guess I'd be willing to meet you there. What do you think, Sydney?
Yeah, I think if we're just making a comparison of like peaceful people who made an impact, then yeah, like that's not where I thought that was going. So yeah,
that's not where I thought that was going.
That is not where I thought that was going. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll grant that. Yeah.
There you go, Andrew. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm glad we can find some common ground. All the supernatural stuff. You know, he was an ancient Jew, so he thought that a supernatural God would do it. I'm a Taoist myself, but I think atheists should really appreciate the historical Jesus and ignore the one that Paul, you know, recreated, and ignore the one that modern day Christians recreated.
Well,
yeah.
And I'll say.
Oh, go ahead, Sid.
No, Dan, you can go.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, so I first of all, I appreciate you said something that most people don't say, which is actually fantastic, which is Jesus's interpretation of Judaism, which is a big thing, because a lot of Christians don't recognize that's what it is. Jesus's interpretation of Judaism is what Christianity is, because Christians like to think of it as its own system. It's not. It's based off of Judaism, and it's specifically with the Gospels account of what Jesus's interpretation of Judaism and the epistles of Paul. And you also mentioned an interesting thing, that Paul's reconstruction of Jesus is not something that we should all take into account. And I also agree with you on that. Paul, as far as we know, I never actually met Jesus. So he's just saying whatever he thinks is right, honestly, a lot of times, and interpreting that, superimposing that onto Jesus. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Christians, for the vast majority of history, do take those epistles quite seriously. And so it's kind of hard to separate Christianity as we know it today as a separate thing from what maybe the historical Jesus actually was. This idea of a secular understanding of a historical account of Jesus is quite new in history, only started around really right before the 20th century, if I recall, right? We're talking about 1800s, really, like actually sussing this out was sort of a newer academic phenomenon than what's historically been, you know, an understanding of Jesus' account. So yeah, I think we're mostly in agreement here, Andrew.
Yeah. So atheists owe, you know, the historical Jesus an apology for all those insults.
Well, hold on.
You got to give the man credit. I think you got to give the man credit.
Well, here's the thing, though, and I don't know about you, Dan, But I've always thought that if Jesus as a character, as a person, were looked at from the perspective of, say, fables, of these are lessons we're trying to learn from, the same way that Aesop's fables are, the same way that so many stories are supposed to teach a lesson, I think there's a lot of good that we can draw from the way that Jesus, not the overall Bible, but Jesus talked to people and spoke to people and the things he said and the rules he said to follow, specifically Jesus. I don't want anybody to claim that I'm like pro the Bible, because I'm not. I think where most people disagree is whether or not he actually existed as a human being. I think some people think he really was on Earth and he existed. Some people don't. But the actual actions and words and teachings of Jesus aren't. I don't know a lot of atheists who are riled up about that part of the Bible.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a consensus among historical scholars that Jesus existed as a person. His personship is separate from that which is described in the epistles, obviously, but also the gospel accounts are not eyewitness accounts of Jesus. So they're also, in a way, reconstructions of Jesus. The truth is, we don't really know a whole lot, but Andrew is right in the conclusion that scholars make, which is that Jesus was a likely non-violent revolutionary with a particular interpretation of Judaism. I mean, he's still a cult leader, Andrew. Right. That's the thing. He's still a cult leader. I can't give him that. Right.
And we're not going to apologize to him.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, oh, well, we should be thankful for him. Because no, he said actually, okay, but before I get too much into nuance, there's also a difference in what scholarship actually thinks.
I'll be thankful.
I get it. There's also a very much different account of what Jesus actually said versus his divinity as well. There's a lot of debate as to whether he actually said he was the Son of God, because that's not actually found in all the Gospels. Weirdly enough, you think it's there. It's not. It's really mostly in John. So it's like, yeah, okay, his divinity is also in question, whether he's actually the Son of God. But point is, I think if he was a religious leader and he had a different interpretation of Judaism, it still comes with the baggage of everything else, right? Like, I don't know. There's something to be said there about, like, oh, we should give credit to the guy that kind of sort of got it right, but also ended up, screwing us over in other ways too. It's hard for me to give credit to a cult leader again, but I guess he had some good points. Anyway, Andrew, that's a lot of thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Jesus denied when somebody like his own divinity. In Luke 10, he said, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? There's only one good but God." So right there, like, you can just show Christians, look, he didn't think of himself as God.
No, I agree with you.
God's anointed, but
that's why there's a debate as to his divinity, and that's why you don't see a lot of that language until John. So yeah, we're in agreement there, Andrew. But we've said a lot here. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Mostly me.
Yeah,
talking
for the most part.
Okay, cool. All right.
Would you have any interest in calling in the future, maybe next week, to tell us a little bit about Taoism and your beliefs?
Sure.
Yeah, we'd love to hear back from you at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm a Taoist, open to just religion as a humanist construct. So that's why I'm still pro-Christianity, just the positive elements.
Yeah, we'd love to have you call in next week or something like that to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. I get you, Andrew. I get you. You want to make sure that we're giving credit where credit's due, right? Here's the thing. It's hard for us to do that because we have to give very, very, very specific and nuanced credits, okay, when those things are appropriate. And it is very hard to do that without people just taking a clip from us and saying, see, even Jesus, they think Jesus is all right. It is an uphill battle for us if we give any ounce of, credit, which is why it's like pulling teeth from us. Okay. We really don't like to say it all the time, but like we can give that within the appropriate context, which I think this conversation allows. It's just, it's not always easy to do that. But Andrew, we are going to go ahead and let you go.